Good morning on this Sunday, October 9th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Bombshell allegations rock Herschel Walker's campaign for U.S. Senate. Also, new polling in the governor's race shows Governor Brian Kemp with a 5-point lead over Democrat Stacey Abrams. And Burt Jones says his Democratic opponent Charlie Bailey is unfit for office after a 2011 DUI arrest in the lieutenant governor's race. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Martha are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
8 days until early voting begins in Georgia, and Republican Senate hopeful Herschel Walker remains defiant after reports alleging he encouraged and paid for a woman's abortion in 2009.
The abortion thing is false. It's a lie.
Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker spent much of the week denying the claims he paid for a woman's abortion.
I can tell you right now, I never asked anyone to get an abortion. I never paid for an abortion, and it's a lie.
Walker's son Christian blasted his dad on Twitter.
Silent lie after lie after lie. The abortion card drops yesterday. It's literally his handwriting in the card. They say they have receipts, whatever. He gets on Twitter. He lies about it. Okay, I'm done. Done. Everything has been a lie.
Christian is Walker's son with Cindy Grossman, whose undisputed accusations of domestic violence and threats from Walker have blanketed the airwaves for months.
Family values, people. He has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. He was out having sex with other women. Do you care about family values?
Walker calls the accusations gutter politics and points the finger at Democrats.
They're desperate to make this race about my family because they know they don't want to talk about Joe Biden and Raphael Warnock, what they've done to Georgia families.
Incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock steered clear of the allegations against his opponent, instead focusing on policy differences.
I support reproductive health care as a part of health care. And my opponent, on the other hand, is talking about a nationwide ban with no exceptions. That would include rape, incest for the mother. And it's just one of the reasons why Georgians have a real choice to make.
Walker tweeted this week, "I love my son no matter what." Now, there is a lot to unpack here. Martha, I want to start with you. Early voting starts next Monday. There's really no way to say it, but these accusations and the tweets from his son are just damning to the Walker campaign.
Well, first of all, as a mom that had a blended family and obviously didn't have those kinds of problems in it, I know how difficult it is when you have young children who have lost a parent. It really is what happened. And so my heart goes out to Christian Walker. And I'm not going to comment about Christian Walker and what he said because I don't think he should be part of this discussion, even though he's inserted himself.
It's really hard to watch.
It's hard to watch. It's very hard to watch. I mean, it's
As a mom, it hurts.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I do think that certainly there's a lot of emotion related to this, but I think that what's going to happen is, and I've heard from my callers and I've gotten text messages and emails that I don't know what we're going to do. We're praying about it. But I think when it ultimately comes down to it, they're going to go in and they're going to decide who's going to vote the way they want them to vote, who's not. I don't know if they're going to skip the race. I think outside of Atlanta, you're going to see a lot more support for Herschel Walker, and in that kind of suburban ring of women, which he probably had problems with anyway, it may be different. I do think we're much more likely to go to a runoff now than I did. And there's still a lot of talk. He needs to be talking about issues. What's the old adage in politics? If you're explaining, you're losing. He needs to move on to the issues.
Well, that suburban ring could really decide, these close races. So, Theron, well, this appears to be a gift to Democrats. Is there still a worry that Republicans know control of the U.S. Senate could be at stake, and they're willing to vote for policy over Walker's personal life?
Well, I agree with you and Martha. That video of Christian Walker is very hard to watch. And as a black father, it was extremely hard for me to watch. And I really think that it kind of sets a lot of us back, but particularly black men who are trying to do the right thing and be present in their homes. And clearly this was a display of where family, personal matters enter politics. But I think Senator Warnock said it best, Lori, in his response to when he saw the video, and I want to quote him. He says, "What we are hearing about my opponent is very disturbing. And I think the people of Georgia have a real choice about who they think is ready to represent them in the United States Senate." And I've been saying for months on this broadcast is that the more the voters learn about Herschel Walker, the candidate for U.S. Senate, the less likely they are going to be to want to vote for him. And so while this is a personal matter and we're not going to comment on that, but I do think that Senator Warnock is trying to focus on the issues. He even said that, hey, I'm looking forward to the debate. But I think that the way that Herschel Walker's campaign had rolled him out, as Christian said, I'm not saying this because it's more than what he just said in that clip. I mean, you got to listen to it in its totality. But it was just this Christian family values, conservative who wants to do all these things that the Republican Party care a lot about. And what we heard, these allegations, while very serious, kind of goes into the core of this campaign. But ultimately, look, Democrats have got to be very careful, and I'm being very careful of how we respond to this, because it is a personal matter, and we got to make sure that we stay focused on the task at hand. That is winning this race without a runoff.
And I want to stay focused on the political fallout. So, Phil, let's look at your latest poll numbers from Insider Advantage. The poll was taken on Tuesday after some of these allegations broke. Senator Warnock is in the lead with 47% of the vote to Walker's 44%. Now, I've talked to some Republicans this week who fear that some GOP voters will skip the Senate race on the ballot, or they'll vote now in the Libertarian race for Libertarian Chase Oliver.
Well, I think those numbers show that the polarization that's going on in this country and in this state. I mean, if he's hanging in there at 44 or 45% after the abortion revelations. By the way, this has never been independently confirmed. I see all the media outlets saying, oh, this happened. This has never been independently confirmed. This is a Brett Kavanaugh deal again that the hard left and Warnock and his allies are doing. Drip, drip, drip with an anonymous woman who says all this stuff. We don't know who she is. Walker totally flatly denies it. I think you'll see more of this. And Walker and his allies know exactly what they're doing. They're fostering this with the media. And you talk about family values, and you talk about the poor son of Herschel Walker. Let's talk about Raphael Warnock. Let's talk about the fact that he's in court right now in Fulton County for not paying adequate child support. What kind of message is that to a black family or to any family? I think you need to be paying your child support, especially since as senator, he's made more money this last year. So to get down to the politics, I think the issues are really going to command everything here. It's going to be the economy and inflation, and I'm with Martha, and I think all of us are in favor of getting back to the issues.
Well, Melita, we've seen candidates overcome issues when we thought their campaigns were just dead in the water. Walker says Democrats are spewing these accusations because they don't want to focus on issues like inflation, gas prices, Ukraine, Afghanistan, the border crisis. So your thoughts?
Well, let's be clear about the Senator Warnock domestic situation. That is about a modification of a child support agreement. It is not about him, quote, not paying child support.
He's fighting his wife on the amount. Be clear on that.
That's what a modification of a child support agreement is about, Phil. And Warnock is staying on the campaign trail in a no-drama way. He and his bus are crisscrossing this state. He's open to the public. He's not behind closed doors. He's not keeping reporters waiting 3 hours with camera crews for a press conference. Warnock is out there telling people about his bipartisan work on a number of issues which matter to Georgia families. Meanwhile, the Republicans, nationally at least, maybe not locally, are circling the wagons around Herschel Walker. Dana Lash said, quote, "I don't care if Herschel Walker paid to abort endangered baby eagles. I want control of the Senate." That seems to be the overriding issue for some national Republicans.
Well, yes, for sure. Martha, back to you, because if you were advising Herschel Walker right now, what would you say to him?
Well, I would say go out and say, similarly to what he did, I've done a lot of bad things in my life. I take responsibility for them. Let's look forward to the issues and then talk about the issues. But I want to point out two things, and just bear with me for a minute here. I think there is a racial component to this that we haven't looked at. Bill Clinton had lots of allegations all the way up to rape against him. And you had women marching in the street, and it has to do with abortion too. Women marching in the street saying, I not only will support Bill Clinton, and did, but I will do to him something I can't say for him because he's on the right side of the abortion issue. Donald Trump, conversely, a Republican, okay, white man, lots of problems with women, lots of horrible things said. He was pro-life, and the pro-life people stuck with him. At the core of this is a race issue. Herschel Walker is a black man, but also the abortion issue is also at the core of this, because in both cases that I laid out, they supported the candidate because of their reproductive rights issue.
Darren, you're shaking your head.
I talked to several friends this week, and one of the things I kept hearing, Lori, is that, look, I'm going to rise above this. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, white, black, Bill Clinton, or Herschel Walker. What's very sad about this is that we're spending 26 to 27 minutes, a portion of this, and Laura, we got to talk about it, so it's not being critical of you, is that why are we not talking about the issues that voters care about the most? And that's what I want to say. Like, while these are serious allegations, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, the Democrats are not the ones that are saying this about Herschel Walker. So this is not a Democratic attack, Phil. This is his own son saying this about him. So this is not something that we manufactured. This is not something that we concocted. Hold on,
it's been orchestrated.
No, it's not orchestrated. This young man felt compelled to go on social media and say what he said about his dad. Now,
after the Daily Beast article.
Guys, but what I'm trying to tell you is that
yes.
what I'm trying to tell you is this. I just think that I want to speak up and say we all got to rise above this. All right, it cannot be who is weaker, who is more corrupt, who's got more family issues, who's got more. And Herschel Walker has got to pay his child support bill. You know that. So don't even go at Warnock about child support. But I just think that Democrats have got to rise above this. I'm doing it right now. Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about how it's stabilizing. Let's talk about gas prices, how they're going down. Let's talk about how we're trying to get people back to work. And let's talk about how we're trying to make sure that kids feel safe when they go to schools. Those are the things that we want to talk about. So whether it's, all this race stuff, I just think that, Lori, where we are as a state and as a country, politics, we've just become so desensitized to this. And I think a lot of it falls at the feet of Donald Trump. Because all those things that you said about Clinton and Trump was the worst. And I think a lot of voters have ignored these things that are going on with candidates. And I just want to rise above it.
Well, that's an absurd analysis that Trump is to blame for everything. You have to
Yes.
fall back on that.
Yes.
Barack Obama was no saint and
clean.
stirred up
Clean,
and
Phil.
stirred up the
Y'all
left.
criticize him on a brown suit. That's
listen,
all you could do.
Listen, let me.
That's all you could do.
Let me just
All right,
say
quickly,
this.
'cause we are running out of time.
This is an
Scandal-free
orchestrated
administration.
This
No
is
scandals in
Oh,
Obama
that's what a
administration. No
joke.
scandals.
What a
No
joke.
one went to jail.
Nobody
Okay,
went to jail.
No one to jail. No corruption.
Okay, let Phil
Well,
finish.
you know what? Yeah, the left doesn't want me to talk here on the show, I guess. But here's the problem. I mean, the Democrats want to have the Senate just as much as the Republicans do. So that's a political thing. So I don't blame either side for that one. But I will say this: it's an orchestrated attack by the left. There's going to be more smears. Warnock can say, "Oh, I'm not saying anything," but his allies know what to do. And in politics, you have to answer every smear, and that's what Walker is doing. And these anonymous people that are coming forward, the Democrats in this panel ought to condemn anonymous people attacking candidates, whether it's a Democrat
I
or
get attacked
Republican.
anonymously every week.
All
on the
right,
show.
here we go. We're going to get back to
condemn
some
it.
issues. We're going to get back to some issues, folks. Coming up, new polling in the Georgia governor's race still shows the Republican incumbent with a sizable lead. We'll discuss that next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
New numbers out this week in a Fox 5 Insider Advantage poll show Governor Brian Kemp with a 5-point lead over Democrat Stacey Abrams. Once again, Kemp making it to the 50% mark, which he needs for an outright win. Theron, what does Stacey Abrams need to do here to finish out her campaign successfully?
Well, I think she's got to, one, spend the money that she's raised, and she's raised a lot of it, in a very strategic, direct way to make sure that the voter turnout model that she's created, the coalition that she's creating, are actually going to turn out and vote. Secondly, look, I mean, you've seen from Governor Kemp a very disciplined candidate who is running as an incumbent, right? I mean, he went to Clark Atlanta University this week and was asked some very direct questions. And, there were some answers that people probably didn't like in the crowd, but at least he answered them. And so she's got to figure out a way to get the governor on the defense. He's got to make an unforced error. And she's also got to make sure that she stabilizes her support in the black and brown community. She's also got to get more support with women. And I think that she's got to really focus on the undecideds and the independents. So there's a lot to do, but she's got a little bit of time and she's got the money to get it out there.
Martha, it sounds like she's got a lot more work to do than where Governor Kemp is sitting.
Look, how you know this polling is probably pretty accurate is by what the candidates are doing, that it matches their internal polling. You see Brian Kemp going out to groups that aren't necessarily all supporters and speaking to them. You see Stacey Abrams still doing things that are shoring up her base that she should already have. So you can see that that poll is probably pretty close to what they're seeing internally. And yes, she's got a lot of work to do if she's going to catch up.
Well, Melita, we did talk about Herschel Walker's difficult week, but Stacey Abrams also had a tough week. A U.S. District Court judge ruled in favor of the state in a lawsuit brought on by Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight organization. Governor Kemp says Abrams and Fair Fight lost in court on all counts and that she used this lawsuit to line her pockets. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that's an incorrect analysis of the lawsuit, because the lawsuit itself made changes in practices on voting, the way voting is conducted in the state, while the lawsuit was in progress. So many things have changed, which the lawsuit brought to the forefront. And I think Stacey Abrams has a staggering sum of money to spend. Both of them do, really. I mean, the campaigns have raised more just in the last 2 months than either of them raised into all of 2018. So there's a staggering amount of money that both candidates have for taking their message out to the public.
Phil, legally, Fair Fight could not prove voter suppression in legally. Now, maybe it's
That's
different
correct.
in the court of public opinion, but
Well,
legally.
I think you set it up properly, and I think it's very interesting that Judge Steve Jones, who, by the way, is an Obama appointee, knocked down every allegation by this left-wing group. We've wasted millions of dollars of taxpayers' money. The myth of voter suppression is shattered, finally. You can look at the numbers from 2020. You can look at the numbers just in the last 2022 primary. Both parties, Democrat and Republican, have risen in their numbers. There was no suppression, and that's what we should take away from this. It was another Stacey Abrams lie. And by the way, as a footnote here, if Brian Kemp is pulling 50, 51, 52%, abortion doesn't seem to be an issue with Brian Kemp. I think it's crime, and I think it's inflation, and I think people are very pleased with the fact he kept this state open early and business thrived.
Theron, does this court ruling hurt Stacey Abrams' campaign?
You know, this one I struggle with. You know, Judge Steve Jones is an honorable man. He's a fellow Athenian, and he is a proud Obama appointee.
He's a great judge.
He's a great judge.
Yeah.
And to really make sure our viewers don't believe,
I'm sure you're hurt by this.
Phil, is that he did point out in his response that there were some things that were wrong. There were some things that was of concern to him, and some of those things were fixed since 2018. But I want to say this, Lord, I just want to commend not just Fair Fight volunteers and activists and staff, but the people who actually came forward with testimonies of actually voter regularity, voter intimidation. And this was a case that went on for 4 years. And so while Steve Jones decided there was nothing there, and when I hopefully one day have a chance to talk to Judge Jones over a drink years from now, I'll say, come on, Steve, there had to be something wrong. But the fight still continues towards voting rights. The fight still continues to make sure that people feel safe when they go to vote and that our elections are secure.
Do you think there's suppression?
There you go again, Phil, trying to
I want to know. I'm the host. Martha, does this court ruling make it more difficult if, I don't like really to talk hypotheticals, but if Stacey Abrams were to lose, does this make it more difficult for her to say voter suppression?
Well, I think there's that, but there's another thing. I mean, in full disclosure, I'm working with the Carter Center on a democracy resilience project, and both Stacey Abrams and Governor Kemp have signed on to these kind of ideas, which one of them is accepting defeat if you have it. So I think that it's going to be harder for her for a number of reasons. She can't cry wolf twice. I mean, there's a damning video out there of about 9 minutes of her, you know, put together saying that the election was stolen, I don't think people want to hear that anymore. And I think it's time to move on. And I think it will hurt her if she doesn't concede, if she loses. And again, I don't like hypotheticals either, because I want people to get to the polls and vote.
All right, well, let's move on. Coming up, a prior police record surfaces in the race for lieutenant governor. We'll debate after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
State Senator Burt Jones says Georgians deserve an ethical and honest leader for lieutenant governor and accuses his Democratic opponent, Charlie Bailey, of trying to cover up his DUI arrest back in 2011. Now, the AJC reports Bailey pleaded guilty to reckless driving in connection with the arrest. Melita, Bailey says his opponent is just distracting voters from Jones's investigation involving a slate of fake electors.
I think he has a very good point. I mean, a DUI pales in comparison to possible treason. So Burt Jones has a lot of things to want to distract from.
Martha?
What a joke.
I think it's the problem. We just go there, don't we? But look, I did see the first Charlie Bailey ad where he calls attention to that. It's a 30-second ad that's running. So look, we haven't heard much from any of these other candidates because of all the noise at the top. And it used to be noise about the governor's race. Now it's noise about the senator's race. So, look, I don't know how much this is going to, if Governor Kemp does well, then Burt Jones is going to do well, as much as my liberal opponents would hate that.
All right. I want to move on to what will be an 8-month-long headache for commuters on the top end perimeter. DOT spokeswoman Natalie Dale, and I love her.
Yes.
Well, she says be prepared
She's
because
the messenger.
Yes, don't shoot the messenger. Says be prepared because they're having to close lanes in both directions on I-285, and this will cause, quote, profound delays. Now, this is already one of the most congested areas in the United States, not just in Georgia, and you're telling me that it's going to get worse. Phil, I'm not an engineer, but isn't there a way not to do this?
Well, I've talked to Commissioner Russell McMurray of the Department of Transportation, and I said, "Do you ever drive over that way?" And I was wondering if Georgia Tech engineers were doing this. I was very concerned that there was a problem. But anyhow, that's not important. But we have to have this done. And he's explained pretty much through press conferences and press releases and interviews with the media as to what has to happen. We're going to be suffering for 8 months. We're going to have to take alternate routes. It's going to be a huge problem, especially with our trucks trying to get supplies through, let alone commuters. But it has to be done. The bridge work is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 3 new bridges. They're going to be done over this, and you have to do it in sections and then thus close the lane. So,
but they rebuilt an entire highway, a section of a highway, in a month.
That's right, and President Trump waived all of the regulations. I sure wish he was president again to do that.
Yeah, he gave them some incentives too.
I don't know we want regulations waived for construction of bridges that thousands of us will drive over.
It's all safe, and Russell McMurray did it. You don't like Russell McMurray, I guess.
No, Russell McMurray's sister is my daughter's tutor, so I'm always like, does he have to do this?
And I agree. I'll be real quick, Malika. I agree with Phil. I think Commissioner McMurray's doing a fantastic job. But Lori, I feel your pain, right? I mean, 285 is really, really packed. But let's give the Georgia Department of Transportation a little bit of credit. They are giving us some proactive warning. They encouraged us to use Waze and Google Maps to get around everything. But also, I think that, look, this is going to reopen a conversation about expanded transit, right? Because had we expanded transit years ago in this region, I think a lot of people will depend on that good public transportation. So MARTA and others are definitely going to have a seat at the table, as I think voters will be stuck in traffic and they'll have a little bit more openness to basically expanded transit in this region.
I know I will be, as a soccer mom driving that way 4 times a week. I will be. Melita.
Well, I just remember the Wits End Players. Remember them and their song, "They're Tearing Up Peachtree Again." I mean, in all my decades of living in Atlanta, I've never known some part of 285 not to be under construction.
Yeah, our state bird could be the orange construction barrel, I guess. All right, we'll leave it there. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned, everyone.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Well, as many of you know, I spent a lot of my journalistic career across the street, and my mentor over there was John Pruitt. And he's got a book out. It's called Tell It True, and it's about an African-American serviceman who was gunned down in 1964, in the height of the civil rights era. And it's really a journey through the eyes of journalists, of civil rights icons. It's a great book. I advise you to go out and get it. I got mine on Amazon, so congratulations, John. Melita, over to you.
Well, the Arabia Mountain Alliance is celebrating its 50th anniversary. It's a gift to the city and the metro area of undeveloped land. Started out with 500 acres, now it's 2,500. So congratulations to them for reaching 50 years of preserving this valuable gem.
Good. Phil.
I've got one winner. It's Frank Lumpkin. He's a Columbus native. He's a University of Georgia student. And this shows really some initiative. He had a dream, and he was a teenager, went to then Mayor Teresa Tomlinson of Columbus, said, "We don't have connectivity here in Columbus. We need an interstate." He actually got a group together, went to Congress, actually got Ted Cruz and Raphael Warnock together, which is amazing. And they've come up with I-14, Interstate 14. And we're going to work on it. They're going to lobby to get funding. So good for Frank Lumpkin.
Oh, there's hope for the future in that generation.
Yeah, and Senator Warnock talks a lot about that partnership with Ted Cruz on the campaign trail. First, I want to basically wish a happy birthday to City Councilman Byron Amos and also Sheriff Patrick Labatt. They had birthdays this month. Secondly, I want to compliment President Joe Biden for pardoning federal marijuana possession convictions and his move for a 21st century marijuana policy. And then lastly, I want to congratulate Clark Atlanta University for being selected as the site for the new Propel Center, which will be a global headquarters for innovation.
And you were last week in Washington, D.C.
I was, and I traveled up in good old Delta. Shout out to Delta with the U.S. Senator Warnock, and we had a good conversation about how he's going to win this without a runoff, Martha.
And you're the Black Legislative Caucus.
Yeah, Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes.
So just want to remind everyone the final date to register to vote is Tuesday. So if you're going to register to vote in this election, you got to do it by then. So my winners, of course, are the voters of Georgia, all the poll workers, all the people that are working to make our election safe. Also, all the District 2, 3, 4, 9 health people out there that are doing the flu shot clinics, all that kind of stuff. I got my flu shot and my booster, and I'm all ready to go. And as far as spending all the money they need to spend, I'm going to say to these guys, don't spend all your money. I am so tired of turning on my YouTube workout video and having Warnock ads all the way through it. It is in some moment I want to get away from it.
Well, you're on his target list. He needs you.
I know, that's right.
But doesn't it get you motivated to work out a little more?
Oh, I skip right through it if I can. No, but anyway, it's so funny everywhere they are. I mean, everything. Words with Friends. You've got Warnock audio. Warnock ads.
Well, let's hope that next week we can come back to the issues and discuss more issues rather than personal lives. We will see you again next week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye.